Welcome, welcome, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful evening. Hope everybody's got a snack to eat or some glass of wine to drink or your favorite drink of the evening. I hope you're all enjoying yourselves.
We're 5 o'clock here on the West Coast,
We're eight
and you
o'clock
guys are
here
a
on the
little
East
later
Coast.
than us.
Yeah. We're going to be giving it about a 2 to 3 minute grace period to allow all the participants to connect. Then we'll go ahead and get started.
If you'd like to say where you're from, we'd like to see what practice, where you're at, and West Coast, East Coast.
Yes, exactly.
You go ahead and just use the chat there.
Exactly. I want to welcome everyone to Clarity webinar this evening. Before we start, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So this is a webinar format this evening, so everyone will stay muted and off camera. So as Lori said, we do have the chat feature and a Q&A feature. So please use these throughout the presentation to communicate with us this evening. The chat can be used for general comments and for reactions, but please use the Q&A feature for your questions this evening. If you need to connect with our team after the presentation, please follow the information that we posted at the end of the presentation or the info that we will put in the chat. I'm going to give it about 3 more minutes to allow everyone to join this evening. And as Lori said, if you want to tell us where you're coming from this evening, that would be great. We've got an exciting presentation this evening. I'm so excited. I'm going to be talking about educating and not selling.
Something we say every single day to our clients. Every day.
That's exactly right. You're supposed to educate, not sell. Did any
People are still
practices tell us
joining.
where they were from this evening?
I'm not seeing anything yet, Donna.
Okay. Everyone's a little shy this evening.
Kind of getting in their groove, I'm sure, finishing their day.
That's right. Gathering all of your paperwork, putting it to bed. Okay. So we're going to get started this evening. Again, I want to welcome everyone. We are so happy to have you joining us this evening. So I'm Donna Walker, a practice development coach and a senior startup consultant here at Clarity. I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Lori Ritchie, who is also a senior practice development coach. Together, we are excited to welcome you guys to what's sure to be a wonderful and insightful session. It's my pleasure to introduce Robbie Grayson, someone who truly sets the standard in our industry. She is a senior practice startup consultant with Clarity. Robbie has played a pivotal role in launching over 100 successful practices all over the country. Her experience and insight and strategic approach are second to none. Tonight, Robbie will be guiding us through a conversation on one of the most important and often misunderstood topics in our field. This is a shift in a mindset that transforms not just how we communicate with patients, but how we build long term loyalty and trust. So get ready to take some notes and ask questions and walk away with some actionable tools you can use and implement right away. Robbie, we are so glad to have you leading tonight's discussion. And without further ado, take it away.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Lori. And to all of you who are here, I am really honored that you decided to take some of your time out on our very, very, very busy lives. I totally relate. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. So let me start a little bit with who I am, where I came from, where I am now, and why I'm talking about this topic. And it's interesting because it's really not the topic I typically lean toward. For those of you who may be on the call who know me, I don't know who's here. I always love these webinars where I can see some of my old friends, but nonetheless, for those of you who do not know me, I have been in this industry, I would say for 35 years. What we're going to talk about tonight is specifically retail medicine, but I want to give you a little bit of my journey and how I came to this place and why my talking about this topic tonight is really not typical of my strategy and where I spend my time. So I actually was a pioneer in the spa and wellness industry and opened a day spa, a very large one, of the top in the country, back in the late 80s, and sold it to private equity. So we really were pioneers in the industry, from operations, how you manage your finances, how do you strategize, how do you grow. But if you think about it, the industry is very similar to what we have in cash medicine. We had no handcuffs on in terms of our marketing and what we would charge and what our unique value proposition was. That was very unique. So after I sold my company, and it happened to be around the time, I think there was 3 years after Botox was FDA approved, I began to do some consulting in the spa industry, in the resort and destination spa. And by the mid 2000s, the medical aesthetic practice had crept into this vertical that was spa, and they'd sort of become merged. I'm not sure that that was necessarily the best thing, that some of our practices were mimicked after that industry. And again, I'm not talking yet about plastic surgery, cosmetic dermatology, and other cash retail medicine or retail medicine verticals. I'm sharing right now a little bit about how I got to where I am. And of course, it's experience in the time that it took me to get here and all the things I've learned, and how I am really, I think we're experiencing a whole new realignment in our business. So after consulting with day spas, with regular spas, in around 2010, I began working exclusively with medical aesthetic practices. And so that's where, and I really took all the same practices I'd always used. But remember, we didn't have, we had websites, but we didn't have the digital technology. Even 5 years ago, the way we communicate with patients is night and day to what we're doing today. So you've got to think about my pathway, and getting into retail medicine, into the medical aesthetic plastic surgery business, I was able to apply everything, but the one area, and that's why I say those of you who know me are going to be surprised, that I've never had a great affinity for it was marketing until recently, a little over 3 years ago. After consulting, I also took a position as a fractional COO for a very, very, very successful plastic surgery and non-surgical practice in Philadelphia. So I currently live between Connecticut and Philadelphia. And and it's been the best thing that ever happened. In addition to my work with Clarity, which at around the same time in 2020, actually, I started working with another consultant. We started developing a platform, thank you, COVID, because we needed a way to communicate. And so I was really focused on the data, how to manage a practice, the operations, all of those pieces. And marketing for me was nothing more than find a great marketing manager. This is not a marketing, by the way, webinar, but I'm going to lead us to that path. You know, for me, marketing that's something you let somebody who has that expertise manage. And our responsibility as a practice is to monitor that data, to know the money we're spending is going in the right way, you know, that we're not throwing money out the door, which we see all the time. It's a really a tough area. So in my connection with what came to be Clarity in 2 years ago, I was introduced to a whole new way to communicate with our patients. And we talk about the consults, and we talk about listening, and we talk about overcoming objections and all those things. But when you think about what really resonates in your consultation is what you're teaching your patient. But the problem is that consultations can only be done in a certain time frame. So how do we educate people in all the different phases of their journey? So, like I said, those of you who know me are probably going to be a little surprised that I'm talking about an amazing new tool, and not just a specific tool I'm going to talk somewhat about that we have at Clarity, but how you can use education, not just with your patients, but with your team also, because it goes all the way through. So I think there's been a huge shift in retail medicine in all sectors, plastic surgery, non-surgical medical aesthetics, audiology, all the different verticals that offer both cash and third-party insurance-based medicine. There has been a vast change in the last 2 or so years. In medical aesthetics, we saw an outgrowth of practices. The competition is, you know, there's a lot more people trying to compete with us. We see our vendors. We used to have one toxin. Our patient would come to us and they would use that toxin because that was the Kleenex of the brand. Now, how many are those? Our toxins alone are there. So is the patient coming for the brand, or is the patient coming because they trust you, they understand what you do, and you're helping them make decisions in whatever way that you communicate with your patients on their journey? Traditional insurance has changed. The traditional medical field has changed. As I said, I personally think we're seeing a realignment right now of practices. For some, that's a good thing. For others, not so good. So, you know, if you think about how we communicate with our patients, everybody, you know, we have to be on social media. We want more followers. We are, you know, tracking our campaigns through digital marketing, SEO. It's one of the great things I love about being able to see the other side and working in this practice now is the frequent changes between, you know, how Google and the algorithms and all those things. And I'm just using the words because honestly, I don't know what all that means. I would be terrible if I was the one trying to teach you. But one thing I do know is that if I either face to face or in other ways help to communicate and educate my audience about what I'm doing, I'm going to have a leg up no matter what point in the patient journey I provide that education. So We're going to talk today about, what does selling mean today in retail medicine? And it's not the hard sell, it's not the push. In fact, a lot of people are probably happy to hear that, because in all my years, one of the things I hear a lot is, I'm not a salesperson. No, you're not. You're teaching, you're answering questions, you're doing those things. But what are the tools that we have available to us to enhance that, to further increase the conversions that we're getting? And there's a lot of things that have to do with that. So this is not a magic pill, because the follow-up, the strategy you use with educating and how you educate is super important. But really what selling means is to serve our patients, to serve our team, to educate both our patients and our team, to listen, and I think to love. I mean, those of you who do know me know that I do what I do because I am so passionate about this business, and I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love everything about it. So as we're selling, we're also going to just, emphasize that love. But when you think about education and you start to back up and say, okay, if I'm on social media, and this is my personal experience, I tend to stop and listen to the post where that practitioner, that practice, whatever I'm looking at, it may not have anything to do with our industry, but when they educate me about their product, that gives me a moment to think about it. I will swipe through all the other things, but if something stops and catches me, and lately, I mean, here I have to tell you, I'm very interested in all these social medias about the Jenners, her new facelift. Oh, I can't think of her name. So there you have it. I'm not the big social media person, but it's interesting when I listen to things. Being in a plastic surgery practice, I come back and ask Dr. Stark all the time, have you done this? And of course he has. He knows all these things. But as the consumer, if I'm looking at this and questioning it, just think what your patients who don't have my background think when they get these educational snippets through social media, through the YouTube channels, through all the ways that we communicate with our patients, through our lead capture. So this is what I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight. And I'm going to go through a few things, but just a general snapshot of the industry. And I've just talked about that in a short way. There is clearly a realignment, and those who are going to stand out and continue to excel are going to continue to adopt and implement these practices where we are more so connecting with our consumer than we ever have. And we have the opportunity to do that because of technology. What's today's consumer like? We'll talk about that. How to implement an educational approach in your practice, whether you're selling contact lenses, cataract lenses, whether you're selling, plastic surgery procedures, no matter what, how to implement that educational approach, not just by how you communicate with your patients, but how you train your team so they know how to respond to that. And then we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of education over selling. But first of all, I just want to talk a little bit. I know that the majority of our attendees here are in the medical aesthetic industry, non-surgical or plastic surgeons, cosmetic dermatologists. And these are just some interesting statistics that just came out. So the total number of med spas in 2024 versus 2025 went from 11,432 to 12,346. That's a pretty big jump. And from 20 to 22, if you come over on the far right, you see 22 to 23, we had a 26.8% growth year over year. And our numbers, but unfortunately, our numbers from 22 to 24 are down. So what does that say? Well, we have a lot more competition. The market's a lot more saturated, but we work every day. I see every day practices that are just bursting at the seams and doing really well. And they're doing well because of the work they're doing, how they're communicating with their patients, with they're watching their metrics, their strategies. And this is still, and I say it all the time, a great time to be in the medical aesthetic industry. It's just that you've got to, really sharpen the sword and be a lot better on your game. The business of medical aesthetics, again, who are our demographics? We know that 89% still females. Repeat patients on average are 73%. So there is a huge opportunity there, not just from educating them once you have them in, but educating them on all the other modalities, procedures, et cetera, that you share. Non-surgical aesthetic patient visits were 245. That tends to be higher than plastic surgeons per surgeon because of the number of practitioners in these practices. Patient demographics, again, females are about 89%. That female age 35 to 54 continue to represent the largest patient group in medical aesthetics. But males are coming on. They're growing. They make a small portion at 11%, but that younger male, 18 to 34, is a real opportunity. They have grown from 18 to 24% of the market. Just some interesting, I find this statistic very interesting, and I think there's a reason, but your single location practices versus your multi-location went from 283 to 245, 214 to 393. But I think the interesting thing is that the average patient spend, if you notice, is greater in the multi-locations. I have no backup for this. My reasoning is that they are more savvy. They use all the tools. They are more voiced in digital marketing. They need to be. Once you open a second one, and those of you who know that the work that goes into your first location, the second one has to be very strategically planned, and you've got to have all the levers pulled that you learn to do in the first. So that's my theory about why multiple locations do more. They also spread their marketing dollars out. They can spend more marketing dollars, but it's an interesting statistic here and my reasoning as to why. So let's talk about today's consumer. They are super smart. They have vast amounts of information. Some of it's not information we want them to have, which is why it's important that the information they get that comes from us is accurate. They value brands that provide honest, detailed insights into what they offer. They also value brands that prioritize education. For example, think about Apple and all their educational opportunities. Think about, I know a lot of us in skincare don't want to hear the word Sephora, but Sephora has a huge library of how-to videos and educational videos. So you can go through from a medical aesthetic practice in our actual vertical. Skin Spirit does an amazing job with video education with their patients. So consumers like that. They're drawn to it, and it's evidenced by the popularity and the success companies that use that tactic have. They also have a desire for authenticity, communicating with transparency and sincerity. So, that potential patient that may be reaching out for something is very, very typically a very informed and educated patient. So it's important that our education and what we're teaching goes hand in hand with their knowledge so that we can maintain that trust that we're trying to build. And as far as I'm concerned, trust is the one thing with all of our patients that contributes to retention and repeat, and recommending us to their friends and family. So we think about the patient journey, and I just want to talk about this a little bit because we're going to kind of deviate somewhat from what we think about the typical patient journey, which is lead comes into the web, the phone, we respond to that lead, right? each of these touch points are very specific in that patient's journey where huge impressions are being made. And then we go into the consultation, and in medical aesthetics, this is typically when we build our treatment plan, and then the circle goes around. So in other verticals, it may be that we educate before they come in for their consultation or treatment plan. And so there's a lot of different ways you can use educational journeys, but this is the typical patient journey that we think of when in today's world. But now we have all these things, and this is where I'm saying early on that I'm not here to be an expert on any of these tactics, but they are all super important, and they're all an opportunity for us to educate through digital journeys or educational videos, that as opposed to just putting up a social media, just having your website up. Have your website up with lots of video that's going to tell your potential patient who you are, what your unique value proposition is, what your stand is on a certain procedure, what your practice offers, what the results are. YouTube, one of everyone's goals should be to have a YouTube channel about your practice, not just, conversations with your physician, conversations with patients, all the things on different subjects, different procedures, YouTube videos. And one of the beautiful things about doing educational videos is you've done the work. Now you can parlay them into other digital marketing tactics like YouTube, put them in your blogs, have a link to a video education. If you're doing a blog this month on platelet-rich fiber, and then attach a video that talks about that procedure. So whatever you're doing, anything that you're promoting, if you can then have a link to an educational video, it's huge. E-blast, social media, you can put QR codes on your social media that take people to their educational videos. Webinars, I mean, just like the webinar we're doing tonight, it's interesting because that is such a valuable way for you to interact with potential patients. We know that events in our practices are huge growth opportunities. It's like having, big group consultations, and we typically sell. But we can do the same thing with digital, with webinars. And there are companies that are working with that. You can promote your webinars. If your webinar is going to be on laser skin rejuvenation, send out some educational videos and continue to promote. And then the night of your event is actually a webinar, just like we're doing now. So that is another amazing digital opportunity. And the virtual events also, where there are companies that will market your whatever you're trying to promote that night. It is no different than what we're doing all the time now. I think, thank you, COVID, we've been doing this for some time, but we don't think about all these little opportunities that we have in the practice. We're just so busy creating social media. How am I going to get new leads in? And again, there's more to it than just what you put out there. Is what you do with it after the opportunities come in. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about our clarity journeys. Our journeys are basically videos, and I use the word basically in a very kind way. They're not complicated. The video is an educational video that goes out to interested patients about the procedures they're interested in. So how do you send those videos? How do you communicate with your patients and those videos? There's several ways. You have a QR code on your that generates a text message that they opt into. So when a contact comes in, web form's filled out, and it triggers that automated text response. Then you enter the patient's name and cell number, and they get that video. And the video, when it comes in, it doesn't just jump in. I wish that in this particular presentation I could click on one, but there's so many. I think in our aesthetic library we have 39. 4 to 6 in ocular. We are now in audiology, cosmetic dentistry. So to show you a video, we'd love for you, if you'd like to see our journeys, let us know, because we'd love to show them. But what happens is that the video comes to me in my text as a text. And when I open it, it is you, the doctor, it is your practice that is greeting them. So the first thing they see is a hello and a thank you and a greeting from the physician of that particular practice, what you can expect. And then the physician will introduce you to it's a Katie in our case, but an actress that does an amazing job of talking to me, the consumer, about the opportunities, and educating me about that procedure. So assume and I think a really great area that we've seen huge success, and this is where, sending the journey out at the time of the consultation is really important, is in the ocular industry. The increase in conversions to the better lenses in cataract surgery is overwhelmingly over 40%. And as opposed, just from that video, just from the patient sending that video, we've had so much success in the aesthetic world with, if you want to promote laser and that you've just bought a new laser, then work with the laser journeys, put those on your social media, move those into the different areas of tactics that you're using in your marketing. So that's what a clarity journey is. And as I said, we have a huge library. We have surgical, non-surgical. These journeys were built by some of the top KOLs in the country. There's animation when we're talking about surgery, or, the difference in a fractionated laser versus an ablative, all of those things in a way that the consumer can very simply understand it. And what we find is that if they go out to the patient's pre-consult, that the consult goes better, the patient's more educated. A lot of our plastic surgeons say that by using the journeys, their pre-ops are easier, because you also talk about downtime. We talk about, what the recovery period is like. So, getting that little bit of education ahead of time makes for a better close and a better experience for both the patient and your team. When we talk about audiology, again, very simple. I mean, if you think about, and I know this may or not, I don't know how many do we have on the call that are in this field, but it's one of the areas that we have embraced. But if I could educate my patient before they arrived, they would show up with some understanding, as opposed to no idea what to expect, having my team have to spend additional time explaining all the things, and it feels rushed. It's not a good experience for the patient. So if I can eliminate that uncomfortable time by pre-educating my patient, that's a lovely thing for all the players, the patient and the team. That's in audiology. Patient education, these educational libraries, talk to the patient, get them comfortable. They have more questions to ask when they come in. It's again, each journey is sent via a text. And then what I didn't share is that they're in episodes. So the first episode's the welcome by you, the practice, and then the various other episodes go through the cadence of the procedure itself, what to expect in the consultation, specific things about that procedure, and then it moves on into downtime and different things like that. But it helps them to get more confident when they come in to see you, and they're more ready to make buying decisions. And when I talk about them coming through in episodes, so I'm watching it, it comes into my text, but we're all busy. So I may only get through the introduction from you. In about 24 hours, I'm going to get a little reminder in my text that says, hey, Robbie, remember Dr. Smith, you were just, it reminds us of where we were. It's sort of like in my mind, and again, I to all of my technological people that's on this call, I apologize. But for me, it's kind of the same as when I go to Netflix, and it says continue watching. And I don't have to remember where to find what I was watching the night before. So it kind of gives you this no-brainer way to stay in with the video. And then you, the practitioner, can monitor that on the back end. So engagement videos have a place in ocular, plastic surgery, med spas. The most compelling reason to send engagement videos is to expand your practice and retain your patients. You know, it's much more difficult to acquire a new patient. It costs 5 times more to bring a new patient in than to maintain a patient. So improving communication and education builds confidence, which leads to increased conversions and increased revenue for your practice. So another thing that, again, I probably should have a technological person here with me, but we have with our journeys what is called Watch Link. And my consumer or my non-technical description of this is these are, I call them like little anchors, but it's a technology that will allow you to have your patients to have instant access. They don't have to put in signups or passwords. It's incredibly flexible. It can link to marketing tactics you have, appointment reminders, any direct patient interaction. Think about you're doing a consult for a treatment plan, and you can at that point go into your website, and that watch link is going to connect that video, and you can share that with the patient right there if you're talking to them about a procedure that maybe they'd like a little more understanding of. You definitely get a higher engagement. We are able to connect with patients at multiple touch points. So it's not just upon the lead capture, it could also be post-consult. So at any point, it can be in your social media. It's very customizable and scalable. You can generate links for different outreach campaigns for different tactics. And then the beautiful thing is that then there's the analytics on the backside so that you can see the engagement rates to understand how engaged the patient is, and understand, you know, the success you're having with them. Practical ways to use WatchLink, again, before consultations in the waiting room. I know a lot of you have videos. There's used to be Friendly. I'm not sure the company now, but the loops, you can take our journey videos and put them in your waiting room. Post-appointment follow-ups, reinforce treatment plans by sharing relevant video content. We have a patient in, we do a consult, we give a treatment plan, and that's the end of it. We never follow up. There's no follow-up. Social media website integration is incredible with WatchLink. You can put it in post, you can put it on your video, in your blogs, and so on. So WatchLink is a technology tool that allows us to connect these journeys or these educational videos to a lot of our different tactics in marketing. So we have these amazing journeys. We're educating our patients. We've built a YouTube channel with it. All the great things we can do with it, and that's a lot. There's a lot you can do, but it's not magic. And, you know, this is where I always get a little bit, I'm sort of like the lead capture sheriff. I want to know how many leads came in, how many, what the cadence was, what the follow-up was, and all the things. And I also want to make sure that my employees, my team, know what to say, know how to answer the questions, understand that the patients had a journey, all those things. So follow-up is an embarrassing part of our industry overall. The average patient follow-up is in 48 to 72 hours. it should be in the first 15 minutes, in my opinion. And I know that it works 100%, at least no less than the first hour. 45% of patients are never followed up with at all. So when I talk about that realignment, and some practices are just going to really excel and others are going to fall flat, and it's because of things like this. You can have the greatest marketing tactics in the world, but if your team isn't answering the leads, following up with the patient, converting the leads, then you might as well just be throwing the money that you're spending to generate those leads, donate it to someone that could use it, because you're not going to grow your practice if you are not terribly diligent about every lead's followed up within no less than an hour. And I know that, I see it, we can prove it. But again, all this great work that the Journeys gives us is of no help if we're not following up. Converting web leads. Again, this is just a little bit of a reinforcement of what I just talked about, but you need to call the client back, respond to the client within an hour, immediately send out an email, enter contact into patient software, and follow up with an SMS through patient software. They may have already gotten the journey, or the lead may come in and then you send them the journey afterwards. These are all things that you can strategize in your practice depending on what you're trying to achieve. If we haven't made contact within that first hour, we want to reach back out again within 48 hours. Again, the journeys will do that automatically in 24 hours. And then within a week, there needs to be another dedicated follow-up time. One more time, send a final email and a final SMS. Now, that's not the end. We're not going to tell you to stop, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about what you have to do, what your team's responsibilities are, but these are just at the minimum. So the most important aspects is the first impression. And again, I'm moving into a segue of this whole presentation about education, but now we're going to talk about educating our team. It is so easy to be incredible, unfortunately, today, in a lot of businesses. And we have, in my years of doing this, I have done a tremendous amount of competitive analysis. And half the time, people don't even look at me when I walk in. You can hear the enthusiasm on the phones when people answer, thank you for calling Clarity Med Spa. I mean, no introduction, no excitement, no passion. So we got to make sure our team's educated, that our greeting, when we greet our patients, we credential our practice, we get their information, we build rapport, we sound like we're excited for them to call us. We want them to feel good about making an appointment with this practice. Your team needs to know your products and services. And the person, if everyone doesn't, there needs to be a dedicated person that deals with all new patients. That first impression is so important. They have to be able to overcome objections. Understanding what sets you apart, what makes you unique, and talk about the practice. Our doctor has done over 2,000 liposuctions. What are their educational credentials? Talk about their CV, papers they've written, all of those things. Your team, anyone who answers the phone or someone needs to own that, needs to be able to make a hell of a great first impression. We lose so many opportunities just because of our team. So that again goes back to educating. We need to educate the team on how to credential, how to talk about what makes us different, and why your patient should choose you. Let me tell you why you should choose Clarity Aesthetic Practice over another one. What makes you different? So that again is part of educating it. That purpose of credentialing provides the consumer with the necessary emotional reassurance that they are in fact making the right decision in choosing to do business with you. And they have a choice. They have a lot of choices. So don't lose the opportunity because that first impression didn't do what it was supposed to do. What is credentialing? We're going to talk about the designations, certificates, license, publications written, years performing, procedures performed, the caring team, all the things. So make sure your team understands who your practitioners are, what makes them amazing, and how they can talk about it with your patients, with your potential patients. Your team is your biggest sales driver. So we can have all the greatest marketing tactics, we can educate through digital marketing, but if our team is not properly trained to take those leads and opportunities and turn them into clients, then we're wasting our time and money. So again, when I come back to this educate, don't sell, I want you to do the same thing with your team. Your team needs to know that selling is a part of their responsibility, and we have to teach them how to educate and in a credible way so that they can close patients. The well-educated team has a clear distinction among competitors. If a patient calls and wants to know if you offer, let me think of, there's so many products, offer this particular laser, you need to know what that laser does, because you probably have a laser that does something similar. I was going to use skin tightening, but my first thought was the old Ulthera days, and now there are so many different skin tightening. Microneedling is another area where people hear a name and it's like a branded name. Well, you need to let them know that you have microneedling and educate them about that, so that we're not saying, no, I'm sorry, we don't offer that, bye. You need to, the team needs to exude your gold standard. What makes you so amazing? Trust happens with every touch point. And if the first touch point isn't great, you're probably not going to get a second chance. But if the first touch point's great, it needs to follow through with every team member in your practice, that they are all repeating and sharing that same passion and trust. They're reliable, they're informed, and they present your practice as the authority. So again, educating your team. If you sat down with your team tomorrow and had a meeting and you went through every one of your procedures and asked them what are other procedures that someone might be interested in, those are things that you should do through the educational process. We have a great educational training course on the Clarity platform for your team members, and to complement the consultation through the journeys and the education. Create a phone script. And not only create a phone script, and I know you hear this, everybody talks about doing this, but it's no good to create a phone script and teach your team how to do it or think that they're doing it if you're not doing secret shopping, if you're not calling in and checking, or ask friends of yours. We have a great secret shopping form that you can fill out, but creating a phone script is one thing, but you got to test it. You got to make sure people are doing it the right way. Who on your team should be educated, no matter the skill, the front staff, everybody from the person that answers the phone to your manager, to your patient coordinator or consultant, if you have that in your practice, to all the practitioners. Everyone needs to understand how to credential, how to talk to the client, how to gain trust, how to educate, and how to keep the loop moving forward. The fortune's in the follow-up. So again, we talked about that earlier. Ask permission to reach back out to them, be consistent, have a system. Again, automated systems and digital systems are amazing. Use technology either through your CRM with funnels, the repeat manner we have with our journeys. Just keep following up. The fortune is in the follow-up. So what are the benefits of educating versus just selling? Pre-educating before they ever walk in the door, following up with education. First of all, it builds trust and credibility. And that's the long-term foundational. Those are the patients that will be with you forever if they start out trusting. If trust is your fascination, what people first get from you, it goes so far. The Speed of Trust, I know you probably have all read that book, but it is the fastest way to build long-term relationships, building customer loyalty. And of course, it does what we all want with our marketing to increase our conversion rates. So in closing, the Educate, Don't Sell philosophy is a strategy that your consumers want. They want to understand and know. So the more you can in your social media, in your YouTube channels, educate, let them meet you, let them become comfortable with you, the provider, before they've even met you. Focusing on education, both with clients and staff, you're going to build stronger relationships, faster loyalty. You're also going to have patients who are going to go out and advocate for you because they learned through your educational process what you do. So they will then send other patients to you as advocates because they understand. But doing this, it's something you have to be committed to. You have to work on all the time. You have to have systems for tracking, when to follow through, how to use these tools and all your different tactics. It's work. It's not easy, but the benefits are long-term and certainly well worth the effort. So the journeys, as I said, we don't have one to show you, but please put your information in the chat if you'd like to see a demo of the journeys, and we will reach out to you. I have here, you do have my email at Clarity, and I'd love to hear from you, but let's open up for questions.
Thank you, Robbie. So insightful. I really, really enjoyed your presentation this evening. So does anyone have any questions?
No questions? Let's look at
I am not seeing any here. You were pretty thorough, Robbie.
I see the Q&A. So you did undisable the chat. Yeah, good.
We did get that fixed, yes.
Perfect.
A
Okay.
little technical difficulty, but it all worked.
Yeah, and I'm seeing too in some of the chat that people are using videos to educate, and it's amazing. And yes, Dr. Fisher, I 100% agree. Instruct your team to smile first before they answer the phone. I've been years and years and years ago. Some of you who know me may know my first profession was in dentistry, and then I went to work for a company actually developing new dental practices, but it was telemarketing. We were doing a lot of telemarketing, and they made us put mirrors. When we were on the telephone, we had a mirror. We could see ourselves because if we smile, that does come through.
It does. Robbie, I do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Question answer. What are some ways to get the team to buy into becoming masters of their functions?
Wow. Well, it's not overnight. It's consistency. It's education. It really goes back to, it's a lot of things. Culture is huge for me. So I need to have a team that we all want the same thing. Our values are similar. And then it is a consistent effort. You have to set meetings up, you have to it's educating them the same way. We have videos that, and I'm going to back up and say the question is about your team, but it really starts, guys, with orientation with new team members. So it's that whole journey for your team, and you want your team, they're like family. When you find a good team, I've done so many what we call in-depth interviews with practices when I go in and am working with new practices. And I can tell immediately the practices that are going to wrap their arms around what we're teaching and want to learn, because it is a culture thing. As opposed to you can walk in and know, okay, this is going to be one of those situations where I hear a lot of, well, we tried that. But I think the number one most important thing is it's not something you try one, it's a consistent effort you make on a regular basis with your team, starting when they first start with you or once you implement it. It has to be consistent.
I've got another question with regard to the patient funnel. What place do or should your marketing companies play in patient recruitment? I do not trust them for a decent ROI.
Well, they don't have anything to do with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing the question right,
Yeah.
it is your marketing company's responsibility to drive leads to your practice, right? That's what you're paying them for. Now, two things, either they don't send leads or they're sending unqualified leads, or they're sending good leads. But here's the thing, it's their responsibility to get the leads to you, to give you the opportunities to send the videos out and all the things. But if you're not, and once that lead comes in, the ball is in your court. So a lot of times, and you really, I can't respond to it's their fault or your fault, because you've got to be strategic about it. You got to track it. You know, this month with I got X number of leads. They came from this many sources. If you're getting 100 leads a month and you're not converting but 20%, you're probably not getting great leads, or you're not following through. So there's a lot of things, but you've got to figure out what's not happening before you just say it's the marketing company. And it very well could be the marketing company. But all I'm saying is until you have data that gives you the answers to those things. I mean, you know, I want to have a lead capture for every single tactic and every single service. So, you know, CRMs will do this now. And I want to be able to go back in and look at those the lead capture and see when were they followed back up on? How many did we convert to a consultation? And then the next important metric is how many people that I consulted with closed. Am I, you know, bringing in bad leads? I mean, you know, am I qualifying the leads, particularly in plastic surgery? You know, you don't want to waste an hour doing a consultation when the person was not qualified for that. So it's a really slippery slope when you talk about marketing and conversion. What is the practice doing once that lead comes in? And then on the marketing side, are we actually tracking and can we quantify, are they good leads? What is the conversion rate? And I would also encourage you guys, and your CRMs have this, is to listen periodically to phone calls that come in. You'll know pretty quickly if it's your team or if it's the lead. You can listen to a phone call and say that person was not qualified. Now, if they were followed up with in that first hour, like we want them to do, then that's important for you to know. So, you know, are the leads quality that's coming from the marketing team? And are you getting enough leads? And is your team doing the follow through? So it really goes both ways.
Okay. I have one more question for you. So this person has been researching some of our AI agents that are out there,
Mm-hmm.
and they're for various roles. They can perform things like, you know, calling the patient within 1 hour and all
Yep.
of that. What does your expertise say? What do you think about the AI agents?
Oh, well, okay. First of all, I'm going to start by saying that I don't have, from the backside of the practice, I see it everywhere. Everything you do, there's an AI agent. But I will tell you that in the last 2 months, I have heard at least one. And again, I just need to, you know, disclaimer, I don't think I'm qualified to answer it, but they're getting incredibly sophisticated. There's a reason everybody has them. And so I just think when you go there, you need to ask lots of questions and you need to ask people that are using it what their experiences are. But I think that the consumer is becoming a whole lot. I mean, I will tell you me, and I'm like, the crotchety old lady that's like, I want to talk to somebody. Not anymore, man. I go to that little AI person and I get their help. So people are getting, if I'm becoming more happy with the AI bot, but I recently listened to one company's bot that, think about weekends. I mean, we make such a big deal about reaching out to that patient within the first hour, but who has people all weekend answering the phones? And that's when a lot of our leads come in. So I would
And late at night
encourage you,
too.
say again,
And late at night too.
100%. I would
People are up late
encourage
at night
you.
thinking about their surgeries or thinking
Yes.
about their Botox or thinking about how they look and they
All,
text or
yep, all the
call right
things.
away. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So my answer to you is that I'm not qualified in terms of having had a lot of experience with that, other than my personal experience as a consumer. But in our industry recently heard a great thing. But what I would encourage you to do is do the research on the bot you're considering, talking to other people that used it, what their experience has been, and so on and so forth. And talk to your patients too. I mean, patient surveys are a great thing.
And so who was the AI company that you were
So
listening
that
to?
I listened to the bot, and
Yeah.
if the phone rang and I said, hi, I'm Robbie, I actually interchanged. It was Simplast, it was their new CRM or their CRM.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Robbie. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at Clarity, or you can reach out to Robbie via her email. Thank you guys and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thanks,
Take care.
Robbie.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.